Coming up in this mind-blowing episode of Shit Gets Fixed, I stand and ponder the grandeur of nature.
All right, first job at hand is going to be to repair the stripped out threads that were on the left side of our pedal crankshaft assembly. If you remember from episode 7, I did remove this weld so we could get the pedal out of the way. I worked at straightening the shaft as best as we could, and we got that pretty damn close. So today we're going to repair these threads. This is on the left-hand side of the pedal assembly, so we do need to tap that with a left-handed thread. That's because so when you're pedaling it, it doesn't unscrew itself. What we're going to do is get this over to the welding table. We're going to fill this hole, drill it, and then tap it, and we should be in good shape there. So let's get this over to the welding table and get after it. All right, let's do it.
Just like the Swedish pop rock band Blue Swede said in their 1974 #1 hit, Hooked on a Feeling, ooga chaka ooga ooga, ooga chaka ooga ooga. Because it's time for a machining montage!
Hey, what about the welding stuff?
Oops, my bad. Machining and welding montage!
All right, I have you over at the welding station. Just going to walk you through the plan of attack to fill this hole on the left arm of our pedal crankshaft assembly. What I'm going to do is cover the back side of this hole, and then I'll be able to fill it like a cup from the other side. So that's kind of the plan. I'm going to be using my Jazzy 10 gas lens on my number 26 torch. I got about a ½ inch of stick out. Just lets me see everything real clearly. That's my approach, so let's have at it. All right, for the next step in the process of filling this hole, what I've done is I've taken some mild steel filler rod and I've cut it up into some small little pieces. And what I'm going to do is just drop some of those pieces down into our open hole here, our cup. And what I'm going to do then is take the TIG torch and further build up the base or the floor of our cup. I have changed out from my Jazzy 10 to a Furic number 16 gas lens. I've got about 3/4 of an inch of stick out. I need to do that so I can get all the way into the base of that hole and still kind of see what I'm doing. So once we build up the floor or the base of the cup enough, then what I'll do is I'll be able to just get in there with some standard filler rod and finish up the rest of the process. Anyway, that's the approach I'm going to take. So let's see if this works. Let's do it. All right, so our hole is no longer a hole. The next step in the process is to get this into the milling machine, and what we're going to do is mill this outer surface flat, and it has to be at a 90-degree angle to the center shaft. And that is so when we do our drilling and tapping sequence, that our pedal will then ride in parallel with the center shaft. So that's next. Let's get it over to the milling machine and let's get on with it. Okay, I've changed out my 1-inch indexable end mill for a 1/2-inch high-speed steel standard end mill. You can see how I have the pedal crankshaft assembly mounted in my mill. I am going to be moving the bed this direction, okay? And the end mill here, the cutting forces are going to be working this direction. So we're going to be fighting against the backlash that is in my machine. That is called conventional milling. If I were to go the other direction with the bed, that would be called climb milling. There's advantages and disadvantages to both, and
We're doing an interruptus of this normally scheduled machining montage to bring you some breaking news.
All right, I'm reporting from the field here on this so-called conventional versus climb milling situation that seems to be occurring. We thought we would give people a little more of an explanation before things get out of control here.
I thought I would take a few minutes to try and explain conventional versus climb milling the best I can. I'm going to focus on the main differences and what I think is most important. So I'm only going to talk about conventional and climb milling and their relationship with machine backlash. I know there are many other factors that apply and causes and effects, but for the sake of this discussion, we are going to use the KISS methodology.
No, not that KISS. This KISS.
Let's take a walk over to my milling machine so we can talk about basic manual milling machine bits and pieces. Before I get started, did everyone from the group make it over here okay? Is everyone accounted for? To move the bed or table of our milling machine, we need to rotate our tourney handles. Our tourney handles are connected to lead screws. Lead screws in their most basic form are nothing more than a threaded rod. Lead screws are located along each of the axes of our milling machine. Along the length of our lead screws, represented by this section of threaded rod, is a lead screw nut. The lead screw nut, in its simplest form, is like any other nut you can buy from a hardware store. By rotating our lead screw with our tourney handles and its interaction with the lead screw nut, the bed of our milling machine moves in the direction we want it to, and hopefully in a very accurate way. Let's take our simplified lead screw and lead screw nut over to the vise so we can talk about backlash. Does anyone need to use the restroom before we head over to the vise? Because I will not be stopping along the way. Backlash or play is sometimes called slop, counteractoring, boomeranging, or even harbor freightering. Backlash or play is inherent in all threaded rod or bolt and nut combinations. We need a little bit of play or backlash, or our tourney handles in our milling machine will be hard to rotate. And accuracy in positioning our milling machine relies on smooth movement along the lead screw and other slidey parts. You can see here that this threaded rod and nut combination has lots of backlash. I have you over at the inspection stand so we can use these cardboard cutouts to visualize the effects that conventional and climb milling have on our milling machine and its backlash. We have our lead screw and our lead screw nut, and boy oh boy does our milling machine have some backlash. We also have our end mill and this super trick part we're making. We also have some arrows that show direction of travel and also the direction of our cutting forces. Now let's set up our Crayola milling machine to do some conventional milling. Alrighty, so we're all set up to do some conventional milling. You can see the direction that we are going to move the bed of our mill and the direction of our cutting forces. The main advantage of conventional milling is our direction of travel and cutting forces work against each other in the opposite direction. As we rotate our turning handles and take up the backlash in our milling machine, not only is the mass of our machine and the friction of our slidey bits holding the flanks of these sides of our threads of our lead screw and lead screw nut together, but our cutting forces are also working to do that, reducing the concern that our milling machine is completely clapped out and helps us make those super trick parts. Dead nuts. Okay, now we have our Hasbro milling machine set up to do some climb milling. So you can see that unlike conventional milling, our direction of travel and our cutting forces are working in the same direction. If we take too large a cut, the cutting forces could overcome the mass of our machine and the friction of our slidey bits and pull the part and the bed of our milling machine forward, outpacing the lead screw, taking up the backlash in the wrong direction, typically causing the machine to vibrate or chatter, potentially turning our super trick part into scrap. Ah, fuck! Well, all right. That's my take on conventional versus climb milling.
This has been a breaking news update. We now return you to your previously scheduled machining montage, already in progress.
Right on, we got our last pass here. Let's do it.
Well, that's all the time we have for this episode, but in the next episode, we will get to work on making the replacement center shafts or axles for our pedals. So dust off those entertainment feed bags because the next installment is going to be a smorgasbord of visual and audio delights. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you for the next episode of Shit Gets Fixed.